Hello, buddy. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the patch notes for 13.21. So, as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Check out the rest of the content as well. We do patch notes and usually a tier list for every patch, and then we also stream every night starting around usually midnight Eastern Standard Time, sometimes a little bit earlier. And then we just have, dozens, if not hundreds, of backlog videos with patch notes, tier lists, champion guides, all that kind of stuff. And when the preseason comes up and they start doing the big item changes, I'll do individual videos on kind of those different item changes. Then I'll also do some updated champion guides during the preseason. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So some decent changes. I don't think it's going to shake up the meta probably too much overall, but we'll see what they have going on here. Jungle Monster, okay, that's for Nexus Blitz. So Nexus Blitz is back for people who care about that. And then Aurelian's Soul is getting nerfed a little bit. Apparently they said he was snowballing pretty hard last patch. This champ is pretty obnoxious and difficult to interact with, so I'm okay if he's not in the meta on a personal level. We do kind of need to see probably more mages in general, and that has been changing. Obviously, Orianna's been pretty good at Worlds. Azir's good. So it is good to see the mages back, that it's not just like whatever Garen mid or, whatever kind of just goofy mid lane matchups that they had going on for a while there. I don't think it was Garen, but different just bruiser melee mids. So it is nice to see the control mages back. But he is pretty obnoxious because he does wave clear really well once he gets just a couple of items. And he just has so much guaranteed power in a team fight with his ultimate, if it's up, that he can be pretty obnoxious to deal with. So I guess it's okay to nerf him a little bit. And he roams into side lanes, which is, once he gets that wave clear, they've nerfed that from a lot of champions where they can't clear the wave as fast and get into the side lanes. But he is, one champion that can, I think, still do that reasonably fast, which is annoying. Okay, Bel'Veth. They nerfed her pretty hard last patch, which I didn't really understand. I didn't think she was dominating that hard. I mean, maybe her win rate was a bit stronger than they would like for it to be. But they are giving her a little bit more cooldown on her E, which I guess is fine. I think that's her thing that blocks a lot of damage, and she hits a million times when she does that. So that's fine. She's probably only casting that once per fight anyways. Maybe once she gets a lot of CDR, ability haste, whatever, maybe she can cast it more than once, but that's fine. Okay, brands. So this definitely feels like a Freak thing to change, and this is like Freaks saying it here, please take Q, do this thing that people don't do. And I know a lot of people critique Freak and they're just like, oh, he's ruining the game, but I think that he does have a very good analytical sense of at least interesting things going on, and he's trying to shake it up every time they, almost every time they try to make these goofy junglers, Talon, Zed, whatever, go into the jungle, then it's really hard to balance. Usually it's just a bait and it's terrible, and if it's too good, then it gets nerfed really quickly. So it's a bit odd, but I guess they are trying to change up the meta in the jungle a little bit, or just offer some squishy mage type of options in the jungle, because I mean there are some AP jungle options, right? You've got Diana, Lilia, so there are some, but I think they're trying to add in a bit more just for better composition diversity, and in case you want to run an AD mid, then having an AP in the jungle is nice. And of course you have the tanks like Sejuani, Zac, that type of stuff that can build AP items, Maokai, stuff like that. But they're trying to add one more in here. I don't think it's necessarily going to work. I mean, that is a lot of damage, 220% monster damage on the burn, so I guess if he just completely melts monsters, that's going to be good. That sounds like that would be pretty nice for taking down Baron. Because it's a percentage of max health. I think, isn't it 3 or 4% max health on that passive? So 220%, it's 10%. Surely there's some kind of cap on it. Okay, maximum monster damage is still capped. Okay, but he's going to reach that cap a lot earlier. So doing 80 basically true damage per tick per second or whatever is pretty good. Baron is very sturdy, and Dragon is very sturdy now. So, and he's just going to get completely blasted by those. There are just so many problems with running like squishy mage type of champs, because you can't tank Baron or Dragon. If you have like a tank support, they can do it, but it just limits your options, because a lot of times you want the support to get outside of the pit and try to zone off the enemy jungler or whatever if they're alive, because you're not contributing much damage anyways. So it just creates weird scenarios when you've got a squishy jungler. You can't dive towers as well. Again, you can have a tank or someone else do that for you, but it's putting more constraints on your comp. So I don't think it's going to matter, but I guess it's interesting they're trying for people who really want that type of thing in the jungle. Then there it is. They are nerfing lane brand a little bit, it looks like, off of the E, but it's like 5 damage. That's not going to matter too much. And he is a little bit less health, but way more base armor. So attack speed is kind of goofy. That does help you with jungling, but, you know, like they say up here, it can also help you hit towers. You know, maybe you get 1 or 2 more auto ends, get that plate faster. So it's okay. I think he'll still be basically the same as he is now. Maybe he goes up a little bit off of this. Which is like a mid-tier support in my... Like, the lower the elo goes, the better he's going to be. The more likely you can land your skill shots, and that people aren't going to spread out for your ultimate, and things like that. So he does have, against a lot of comps, especially like 3+, you know, melee champions, he does have a lot of virtually guaranteed damage. If you just press R, you know, in a team fight in the middle of the stack, it's going to do a lot of damage. But he is very gankable. It's very hard to get vision control with him. He's got a lot of problems as a support, but he can still work in the right kind of situation, especially if you snowball. Okay, Briar seems fine. I've seen a couple of games with this champ where she's okay. I've seen some games where she seems completely worthless. So they're increasing her healing a little bit. When she gets kills for a reset, that's probably okay. Attack speed is down, so her clear is going to be a little bit worse. And then she's getting a little bit more damage on her W, I think. 3.10% plus 3.5% of bonus AD. Okay, so it's getting a higher base amount, but scaling a little bit less. That's probably fine. Okay, Caitlyn. I have not seen the lethality build actually do well. I've seen many Caitlyn's try it out in the games that I've played, either on my team or on the enemy team, and it always just seems absolutely horrible. It's like, yes, if you get to like 3 items or something and you ult the enemy ADC and like nobody blocks it, that's a problem. But there are quite a few champs out there that can body block that, either tanks or things with shields, you know, like supports with shields, and like enchanters, that's the word I'm looking for. Enchanters with shields, I don't know. It just seems really gimmicky, and I have not seen it really taking over. I know some people had mentioned it on stream, so I'm sure it's doing well somewhere. Caitlyn, I think, is pretty bad unless you're very good on her, like world's level pro player on her. Maybe not quite that high, but you need to either one-trick her and be Diamond Plus, or be, you know, an extremely high-level challenger or pro player to use her. And that's because she doesn't have a lot of guaranteed power, right? She doesn't have attack speed steroids. She doesn't have any true damage. She doesn't have any proc damage. Almost all of your damage late game is just pure auto attacks and positioning, and you're just going to get out damaged by a lot of other champs. And she has very low burst if people don't step on the traps. I wish they would buff her traps. Maybe lower the cooldown on them, allow you to have more outs. I'm not really sure how they would do that, but I think that's the thing that makes her most unique, is just make her like a zone of control, like range champ. They could also buff her net, so that's up more often, or nets her back further or something like that. But as it stands, she's just a worse Jinx for most people, in the sense that she's long range but doesn't attack as fast, doesn't have the AoE of the rockets, doesn't have the ultimate. I think Chompers are better for protection, and for I don't know if necessarily chaining CC if they would be better, because headshots do a lot of damage if you combo it correctly. But I just feel like Jinx is a lot better for just your average player. So it's okay they're buffing her up, but again, I would do something to buff her traps or her net. Or make the combo like easier. Maybe they're trapped for slightly longer so that it's easier to land your net combo on them or whatever. Okay. But what are they actually doing? So the physical damage on headshot is up marginally. 85% of your critical strike chance rather than 81%. Okay, so almost nothing. A little bit up on the headshot. Cooldown is up 90 seconds in all ranks. I guess that's fine. And then physical damage is up, or is down on it by quite a bit. And then bonus damage from critical strikes is up. So they really want you to try to build crit a bit more, which I think is, in theory, probably a better build for her. But because you don't have that attack speed, then her like scaling is just not going to be as high as a lot of other champs out there. Okay. Mundo E attack damage decreased. Is Mundo that much of a problem? I've seen him do alright in some games, but bonus attack damage based on missing health is lower. Oh, okay. Sure. Hecarim, AD growth, increase, W. Man, so many people hate this champion, myself included. He can gank so well early on, and he's just almost impossible to peel, and feels like he can one-shot your backline if he goes lethality. Like, I realize they nerfed him a little bit, but he's still just a pest to deal with. So they're increasing his W so he can heal more, and they're increasing his base damage growth. I guess we're aware the new Ghostblade is taking off, which will increase his overall power level. Yes, he really likes Ghostblade, but we want to buff him anyways. Strengthen him as a fighter. This still helps the Ghostblade build. Like, if you want to strengthen him as a fighter, give him some ratio on, like, health or something that he builds. Like, if you're trying to encourage him to stay and fight a little bit more, I guess that's sort of what they're doing here, but I don't know. I think people are still going to go for the one-shot build. I think it would be healthier if he were tankier and were like a backline disruptor that didn't just completely kill the backline, but could get there and just constantly harass the ADC, and like it took them, you know, maybe 5 seconds to kill him or whatever, and they could just tank and absorb a lot of pressure. I think that would be cooler. I think that would be a healthier game state, because then you could maybe actually peel him. But whatever. I guess that's fine. Jinx. So she can only get up to 5 stacks. But you can't get stacks off of towers and epic monsters beyond just 1 stack. So you can't just chain together towers with like Rift Herald or something like that and just chain, you know, a bunch of stacks together. That's fine. Cassante, man, this champ is annoying, dude. I know people are going to meme on me, but because I talked about it last time, there were like, I didn't even count, it was like 70 changes to this guy's kit. And now they're bringing in, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more changes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bug changes. Several of which could change how he's played at a high level. So he could cast Flash on his 3rd Q, which he's not supposed to do. It probably required very precise circumstances or timings. Changing how he interacts with charms or fears, so now he can go through those. So some of these are like pretty significant, but on it, and like it's just so hard to tell, like, because I don't play this champ, I don't play top lane, I just see him dominating pro play all the time. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to allow him to be aggressive and potentially kill people when he presses R's. They want him to do, I think, a lot less damage when he's not in R mode, and do a lot more damage when he does R, but have a lot less durability, which I think is the correct way to go. Okay, so that's a lot more damage. So are they nerfing anything about his durability? Required bonus health for minimum cast time. Okay. So he gets lowered cast time based on how much bonus health he has. Okay. This is like the most ridiculously complicated champion. I feel like it's just like since Aphelios or something, you know? There's just like way too much going on with this guy. Like, why does cast time scale with HP on an ability? Pathmaker will no longer interrupt Casante's E dash when the channeling starts. Okay, so something very specific high level Casantes can do with it, I guess. Maximum channel time 1 second to 1.5. Okay, so he has a bit more time to fake people out. Healing calculated based on physical and true damage dealt, calculated based on all damage dealt to champions. Okay, so now magic damage counts too. Q plus E resets is instant. Okay, so I don't know. It seems like buffs. They're marketing as buffs. I guess that's good. I mean, I'm not necessarily against high skill cap champs in general. I don't think everything has to be Garen, but I just think that there definitely is an upper limit on how many interactions and modifiers like a champ should have in their kit, and like what the level of mastery is. I guess it's okay if you have 1 or 2 champs like a Cassante, like an Aphelios, like a Yasuo in the game, and I know they're fun to play. It is extremely intimidating, especially for newer players, I would say, to try to understand what's going on with this guy. But even for, like, I've played the game 13 years, and I haven't been playing as much recently, and I don't play that role, but, I've spent a lot of time thinking about champions, playing different champions, watching a bunch of the games. I've probably played 10,000 games, and this thing is just a pain in the ass for me to try to understand what's going on with this guy. So, I feel like, there's something to be said for that. Maybe I'm just too smooth brain, and I just don't want to put the time in to learn him and to read everything and truly try to understand it, and that's true. But at the same time, it's like, how much time should you have to spend like just reading and thinking about what that means to really understand what a champion does? Like, I understand mastering a champion in terms of getting the feel of it, learning the timings on the abilities, trying to master skill shots and sequence things correctly and stuff like that. Like, that kind of mastery is good. But I think just trying to even understand what's going on, if you can't do that, like, relatively quickly with a champion, I think there's some problem in the design. If it takes you more than like 5 or 10 minutes to sit there and just ponder and try to just conceptualize what's going on, I just think maybe it's a little bit much. Okay, LeBlanc. So W damage increased, E tether completion damage increased. Okay, so that's going to give her a little bit more wave clear when she has more AP, okay. And then the chain's doing a little bit more scaling. Okay, so they want her to be better on, like, third item. Okay, buff her AP builds. Yeah, I mean, the static shiv build I don't think exists anymore. And it was bad in solo queue. I don't think I saw a single static shiv LeBlanc, in Emerald, in Platinum, whatever, that was good. I mean, maybe was good in, like, Challenger. I don't think it was that amazing in Pro from the games that I saw from it. But she's a pretty obnoxious champ in general. I'm okay if she's not in the meta. It's just really difficult to interact with her unless you have very specific, like, champs that can, like, hard CC her, like Malzahar, Lissandra. And you just may not have that type of stuff in solo queue. Okay. Master Yi, another, like, obnoxious solo queue champion. 4 seconds down on Wuju. I guess that's fine. There are enough answers to this guy. He is still really annoying when he starts, snowballing and taking over. But, he is sort of the CC tax. It forces your team to have CC, or you're just going to get run over eventually. So it's strange that this wasn't a good patch for him overall, is what they're saying, because most of the time he just wants to sit there and power farm. Unless he sees like really good opportunities and the laners have a lot of CC or whatever. But I guess it was a problem. Maybe they nerfed AD too much. I'm not sure. Okay, Morgana, W increase. They're trying to make her into a mage in the jungle again. Morgana is maybe a little bit more viable in the jungle than Brand is. I know she had a moment where she was getting played at high levels in pro, just because her jungle clear was so insane. But she at least gets things like stopwatch, and she has some, CC with her R. She's got CC with like a very long piece of CC with her Q. So she can get in there and disrupt with Hourglass, Flash, that type of thing. So I think she's a little more well-suited to jungle. And she's a bit more durable, brings a bit of utility with the Black Shield. So I don't think she's going to be a great jungler, probably. I don't think this is going to be enough to turbo clear the jungle like she used to. But maybe you'll see her a little bit more. I still think she's a bit goofy because she doesn't have a gap closer. Her CC is very conditional. You have to hit this super slow moving Q most of the time. So I don't think she's going to be dominating in the jungle, but maybe. Sort of like Brand though, probably, can't tank Baron, can't tank towers. You're going to need tanks and CC on your team to help you out, which is going to put a constraint on those different roles. But we'll see. I think it's interesting to at least try to let people, especially at low reloads, play around. Because people love trying new stuff and doing goofy things in different roles. So, yes, you're going to get some bad solo queue games. Yes, people are going to get baited into trying this and they're going to go 0-10. But overall, it is fun, especially for casual players, just to get in and try some different stuff and mess around. Okay. Rammus, Q damage decrease, W damage, armor decrease. So I guess Rammus was really good. I never saw it personally on this patch, but he did have a 54-55% win rate, and people in chat were telling me he was very good because they changed how the armor stacks with the pet. I think they should just get rid of the pet system, man. I think it's just very goofy. The jungle is just so convoluted. Now, it's kind of like what I was talking about with Cassante, newer players trying to go into the jungle. It's okay, well, you got to get this pet, you got to grow the pet up. It does a certain percentage of your armor or a certain percentage of this or that damage, and then it gives you these, stats that you can get, and the camps level up over time, and if you have less experience, they're actually worth more experience, and you get bonus damage on your camps, but you don't get the bonus damage on the enemy camps. And you don't get as much XP or gold or whatever when you're taking lane minions until it's past 12 minutes, or just whatever. There's just all this goofy crap that they've tried to put in to, artificially sort of constrain junglers and do all this stuff. I just think they need to just simplify it a lot more. I don't mind the junglers having a jungle item. Okay, here's an item that you get, and it allows you to clear the jungle quickly, right? To discourage other people from taking your camps. I guess that's okay. You already have Smite. They could just say some aspect of Smite itself and not force you to jungle. But if you take Smite, then you do 20% more damage to jungle minions or something like that, just passively. Now, could laners take Smite too? Yes. But if you don't have upgraded Smite or whatever, did they get rid of the upgraded Smite? I think they put it on or they tied it with the items or something. Just something like that. I think there's a more elegant way they could keep laners out of the jungle and keep junglers in the jungle, and then just make it a lot easier to understand for newer players, especially that want to get into the jungle. Again, I'm all for skill when it comes to actual gameplay. But when it comes to just the nuances of learning all of these goofy interactions and edge cases and just sitting there with your calculator crunching stats and trying to fully optimize and stuff like that, I think there's a certain limit where it's not really skillful. It's just kind of tedious and annoying, and could actually potentially be hurting the creative potential of different builds, different strategies, and things like that. Okay, so anyways, back to reality here. Powerball, a little bit less damage. Okay, early on, that's probably fine. Defensive ball curl, a little bit less armor. I think that's fine. I don't think Rammus is that big of a deal. Yes, it does require somewhat specific champions to stop his Powerball from going in, but usually tanks can just block him. I mean, he can ult and jump over them now, which is a lot better than it used to be. Maybe that's too much. A lot of ADCs are really mobile these days. People can eat the Powerball too, especially if he doesn't have his ult, so someone can just walk up, tank it, and then if you have like Mercury Treads, you can probably get out of it pretty quickly. Like, he doesn't have any knockups. Yes, his CC is pretty long. It's like 2.25 seconds, I think, on the taunt. But I don't know. It's like, is he really that much more dangerous than like Sejuani or something? I mean, he does gank early, I guess. I mean, he did have a high win rate. This is for lower elos, so I guess that's fine. Okay, Seraphine, they're basically trying to push her into support. I'm okay with that. I don't think that a lot of these sort of enchanters being mid, I think it's difficult to balance that, because if they can buy cheaper items, then it really messes with like the timing windows. And I don't know, maybe that's a good thing for the game. Usually players don't like it, and the Riot team doesn't like it when enchanters are in other roles, right? When you see like Sona top, Lulu mid, that type of stuff, it's usually fairly uninteractive lanes. A lot of times it's just a bunch of farming, and it's encouraging really cheap healing and shielding, which means like just not a lot of people are dying as often in lanes, in team fights, and that's just not as much fun, I think, for people to watch. It's almost like the tank meta, which is also anti-fun, that people don't like a lot of times. But it's mainly just the curvature of the items. It's that they get, they can start buying items at 2100, 2300 and be too effective. They give Ivern a pass on that, and there's a lot of specific things about him. He's a very unique champion. I think he's a weird champion that has interactions that are different, that are actually fun, and you can understand them. It's not just weird, like, stat scaling, strange stuff going on with it. I think Ivern is weird done right. Unique, weird, done right for the most part. Is he really obnoxious? A good Ivern player? Yes, he can be. But I think for the most part, he's a pretty cool champ when he's in a balanced state. Okay, but anyways, what are they doing with her? So she has much higher base armor. Okay, so that's going to make her a lot better at all ends. Less base mana. That's probably okay, because you're using mana regen anyways a lot more. You're getting higher mana regen. Health growth is down. Attack speed is up. They just love giving these mages attack speed, I guess. High note. Cooldown is down early. Mana cost is about the same. That's a lot more damage. That's 40 more damage early on. So, like, when you're level 5, if you're maxing this first, which I think you probably still want to do, that's 20 more damage. Remember, this thing gets amplified, too. If you hit them with 2 of these, with your echoed version, that's 210 damage instead of 170. And I think doesn't it have, like, a percentage missing health component to it as well? So that's a lot more damage. And it doesn't cost any more mana. And then this costs a lot more mana, so they really don't want you leveling this up, I don't think. They're giving it a lower cooldown at like max rank. And then the shield's actually up quite a bit. I don't know, maybe you do. If you double tap that, that's a 300 shield instead of a 260. Maybe you do max it second. It doesn't give as much missing health though. Okay. But base numbers are way higher there, and they're way higher here. This is 60 more. So if you double tap that, instead of 280, that's 400. Maybe you max that. 400 damage on a single ability. Now this is 310, plus that missing health. I can't remember offhand. It has some kind of modifier on it. Man, she's going to be hitting hitting hard in that early to mid game. Once if you like max Q and E, and those are like maxed out, around level 10 or so. I guess both of them would be maxed at level 13, but you're going to be hitting like pretty hard. I don't think Seraphine's a bad support right now. I think this is good. This might actually bump her up to like maybe tier 2. I think enchanters in general are not quite as favored if you can make good engages on tanks. But she is one of the few enchanters that actually has like a pretty good engage, right? Like it's like she's got her E that she can use to root people. And then of course she has her ultimate, which is like a super long range engage. So maybe that's enough, like where she can pressure early and still like find picks and get like good team fights later. She still does have the problem where if someone gets on her, she blows up instantly. She can't, tank towers during dives. It's going to be hard for her to establish vision control because she has no mobility and she can get picked off really easily. But as far as like enchanters go, this could put her near the top of the pile for like mid to higher level play. Still not going to scale as hard, I think, in a team fight as something like a Sona. And I know she gets compared to Sona a lot, but this is going to, definitely place her in the much higher like damage early on, much better CC than Sona. Okay, Tahm Kench. Tahm is just a victim of balancing. I think he is a really cool champ. He needs something to change about him. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but he was one of my favorite champs back in the day. They had to change his W because it was just too obnoxious. It's just too safe. And just sort of like what I talked about earlier, discouraged aggressive gameplay, and that's not fun from a lot of players' perspectives, and it's not fun from a viewership perspective, because he just cucked all engaged, basically, like, and so you just had people just staring at each other with Braum and Tom for, like, years. When they were the meta, it was, like, season, 6, 7, 8, before they changed Tom around, maybe somewhat into 9. So they haven't quite got it right to make him, like, a meta support, like, that's frequently picked. Ever since they changed his R. They've buffed it like a billion times. They keep giving him all these like AP ratios, but there's just not items to support that. Like there aren't good, cheap AP tank support items. That'd be really cool if they had some. Like if they made Demonic 2,500 gold and adjusted the stats and stuff. That'd be pretty nice. But that's just not the world we live in. So they keep giving some of these tanks like AP ratios, like Tahm Kench, Nunu, stuff like that, but there's just not an item really that works well with them outside of Demonic, which is expensive. So it'd be nice if they had one or two other tanky AP type of items. Okay, but what are they doing? So they're making his passive do less damage, but more scaling. So it's 12 less damage, but it's 2% more bonus health. So if you have 1,000 bonus health, you're getting 20 more damage. So I don't know the math off. What is that, like 600 or 700 bonus HP is when you break even? Something like that. And then anything beyond that is more. Okay. Especially as support, you're gonna get some. What is the Targon's item? Is what, like 200 or 300. Then your Mythic's probably gonna be like 200. You could get a 350 if he goes for the healing item. I can't remember the name of it. Not Righteous. I always want to call it Righteous Glory. That's not it. You don't know what I'm talking about though. The thing that does the AoE healing that like pulses over time for like 9 seconds. So that's 350 plus 200 from the support item. That's 550. So I guess by the time you complete your main item, you're probably pretty close to getting it. Maybe like, one more ruby crystal or something. So at about 2 items, you're gonna do more damage. But the problem is, I think people who are picking him, a big part of it is his early game damage. I think it's his all-in potential if you hit that W. So I think he's positioned now as an early aggressive support is how people have been wanting to play him. So I'm not sure that it's going to matter if you're doing more damage at like, 15, 20 minutes. I think people would rather have damage earlier. And the cooldown refund on hit goes up to 50%. That's a good start, because he does need that up more often. I might even push it up to 60% or something. Just making it where it's like skill based, you have to continually hit your W. Or hell, just make it a reset, like a full-on reset. Would that be too OP? I mean, I guess you could chain it together on the same people, and that might be OP. But they're on the right track here. I think that buffing the W is good, because that's kind of like, that can be an escape. So you can actually swallow an ally and escape with them, I'm pretty sure, with the W. I think that you have that interaction. It can be interrupted by CC. And that gives you a personal little escape dash, which is nice. I think not many supports have that, and that's a good perk. I think something about his shield needs to change. The E just like really sucks and doesn't do a lot. And there are so many shield breaking items and just things right now, like Rel, Blitz are like the two big ones as support. But you also have just other things, or that shield is just not quite as valuable as it used to be. So I'm glad to see that they're giving him some love. I know there are a lot of people on the channel that do like Tom Kench. So, okay. I still don't think he's going to be meta, but maybe there could be some specific comps where you try him out. Okay, Varus, a little bit more on-hit damage. That's his weakest build right now. I think most people are doing the lethality type of build. I know some people were doing AP. I think they nerfed the AP ratio a lot on him. Okay, I think that's fine. I think Varus is like okay. I don't think he's like unplayably horrible. He still has a lot of utility, but I think that he still has quite a few problems. Okay, he has a really good ult, and he has to pay the price for that in competitive. So they don't want him to do too much damage, too much on hit damage, just because of how powerful that ult is, especially in team fights. Okay, Zyra, they're trying to like allow her to go into the jungle, mid and jungle as alternatives. They're calling her a strong support. Disagree. I don't think she's been a really strong support since like maybe season 8 or 9. I don't remember. She's like, so many things have changed. So many times she got nerfed. There was the Zyra Ashe in that legendary worlds. I think it was World Season 6. Season 6 or 7, where it was like Zyra Ashe. Well, it was the Misfortune support, the famous Misfortune support. What was that? Was it T1 versus the Tigers, like the Coup Tigers or whatever? I can't remember, but that's probably the most legendary series of all time in Worlds. It has to be. Certainly from the support side of it. That was like the biggest like surprise I think ever in Worlds as a support for a whole series, not just like one game. But that became a defining meta in the series, was Misfortune support versus Zyra. And no one had played it all Worlds until this, like, I think it was semifinals or something match. Anyways, so Zyra was good back then. I guess she's okay in solo queue, but the problem is sort of like what I was talking about with Brand. Can't tank objectives, can't tank towers, easily ganked and killed. Has a lot of pressure early. She does have much better vision control than Brand does, because she can spawn plants in bushes. I think what they really need to do is like make her W better. Like back in the day, it used to give 20% cooldown when you put points in your W, but now it's just like feels like it's almost worthless. So it'd be nice if they lowered the cooldown by like a lot, like 10 seconds. Make it 10 seconds total to start with, because she has like no damage without her plants. And it sucks to level up the ability that lowers the cooldown on the plants because it doesn't do anything else. And the Q and the E are where a lot of your spell damage comes from. Alternatively, they could have the W not only lower the cooldown on plants, but also increase the damage of all plants, right? Then your spell hits don't do as much up front, but your plants do more sustained damage over time. That would be a better way to balance it. Like, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10% more damage on plants when you put points in W. Something like that. Maybe even 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. But what are they actually opting to do here? So attack speed is up, just like they're doing to everybody. Kind of goofy. Does allow you to jungle a little bit better. Does allow you to trade, take tower plates a little bit better. Plant magic damage on the passive is doing less, but scaling with AP. That's an interesting choice. Because you don't get a ton of AP. Now it's 12 less. That is a lot less damage on your plants at later levels, right? So you'd have to have 400 AP to make up for that 12 damage, which is kind of nutty. So plants are just doing less damage, like quite a bit less. Because remember, you're going to have multiple plants here too. And yes, additional plants do 50% less damage. And a lot of your damage really does come from things like Leandries and Demonic and stuff like that. But the base, it does matter. So maybe not as much early on, but it would be a significant hit to the damage. Now your Q also has a better AP ratio and is doing 20 more damage. Okay, so if you hit your Q to spawn the plant, that's probably maybe net positive. So you're doing a little bit more damage. And then the E is doing a lot less damage. 40 less damage. It does have a better AP ratio, but again, you're going to need 400 AP to make up for that 40 loss of damage there. So, I don't know. Realistically, if you have, 200 AP, maybe in the mid-game from runes, your Spell Thieves completed, and like a Leandries. I don't know exactly how much AP that is, but we'll just call it 200 just for an even number. I think it's a little bit less than that. Plus your runes, you get like 16 from runes. Maybe you take Gathering Storm or something to go with it. Comet Gathering Storm build. And then you've got like Zombie Ward adding a little bit in there too, depending on how often you kill the wards. We'll just call it 200. So that's going to be 6 down on your passive. It's going to be up 10 and then 20 if you hit them with the Q. So that's 30. So that's plus 24. And then 20 down there would be plus 4 if you hit with all max. Of course, all of this is not going to be maxed. But that would basically only be like plus 4 if you literally hit them with everything with one plant with 200 AP and all of your abilities are maxed. It would only be plus 4 damage. So, I don't really know. I mean, it definitely feels like you're going to max Q, and maybe that's better for trading in lane. But the problem is, like, the E is also increases the CC duration by quite a bit. I think it's like 1 second at rank 1, and then it's 1.5. And especially with Mercury Treads being so abundant, so many champs buy Mercury Treads now. If they break out of your E and they don't get knocked up by your R, you're losing a lot of damage, because when people get knocked up, those plants are going to hit them. The plants get enraged and attack faster, and the plants are going to hit them. I think they attack faster. They either do more damage or they attack faster. They've changed it over time. I don't remember which one it is right now. But the longer they're like sitting there next to the plants taking damage, the better. So the plants are probably going to hit them an extra 3 times when they get knocked up. During that process of when it expands, knocks them up, they land, and they have to walk out. It's going to hit them like 3 more times. That's a lot of damage. So, in other words, if you're maxing Q, yes, it's going to do a little bit more poke, but it's a lot more likely that they're going to be able to break out of these grasping roots and use their dash or flash, or maybe even just walk out sometimes without taking nearly as much plant damage. So, I think this could be negative for her, for support Zyra. But really, it's probably not going to move the needle that much on her. Okay, now this one is sort of weird, and this is the last thing. They got a couple more things here, but Enchanter proc damages. So they did this with Melio, and basically when people do damage off of your buffs to them as Enchanters and Leona, then it counts as damage coming from you. Okay, so why is that important? But it doesn't KS, it doesn't kill steal. So why is that important? The biggest one I can think of, and the main thing they mentioned by name with Melio, is the healing reduction item for enchanters. Because remember, the Chemtech Putrifier. Remember, they changed that to where healing and shielding doesn't trigger that anymore, because I guess it was like too good with Font of Life or certain enchanters that could spread healing everywhere. Because remember, with Font of Life, whenever you trigger that on somebody and your ally attacks, that counts as a heal coming from you. So that triggers things like Ardent Censer, Staff of Flowing Water, the old school Putrefier, all of that. I guess they thought that was just too much reliable healing reduction. But the problem is, like, the new item sucks, I think, a lot of times, because a lot of enchanters can't comfortably keep hitting enemy champs with AP spells as often as they're going to be shielding their allies. Depends on the champ, but that's been a major problem. And so it's a real pain in the butt to have to get that heal cut item, and a lot of times you can only apply it to one person every now and then in a fight if you can reach them safely, to apply it. So there's just a lot more conditions, and it's just not worth it. So now that you can just, like, pix, put your shield on a tank, the Hecarim that's running onto the back line or whatever, and he's going to be, attacking everything, it's just going to make it a lot easier to spread this around again. So they're kind of undoing one of the whole reasons that they changed the healing and shielding item in the first place, for a lot of these champions. Now, it's not everybody, right? So Rakan, it's the healing and shielding item is still going to be bad on him because he doesn't have anything that buffs his allies. It's not counting Janna's AD buff. And, there are a few other enchanters that kind of fall into that camp. But for these champs, they're going to be able to much more comfortably use that item. What are some other options? Well, I was trying to look and see. It is possible that it would trigger Electrocute. I'm not sure. I know they changed that interaction specifically with Nami, but I don't know if they changed Electrocute in general to only trigger once per spell cast, or if they changed Nami's E to where it specifically doesn't work with Electrocute. I don't remember how they coded it, but if it does work with Electrocute, you could maybe see people take this. They did nerf this, but they nerfed mostly the scaling on it, and not as much the baseline damage. So it's possible you could see, like, Lulu Electrocute, Nami Electrocute again, something like that. I doubt it, but that's a possibility. And I couldn't think of anything else that would probably really matter. There are some other, like, niche, goofy things that probably have interactions, but I haven't thought about it as much. It does stack your Spell Thieves faster, so that's a perk. You already stack Spell Thieves really fast anyways, usually, as most of these champs. But you do have that. Now with Leona, I'm not entirely sure, because that's magic damage that's proccing from you. I mean, if you had, like, Demonic or something on these champs, you would be able to apply Demonic a lot better. So is there a world where you get Demonic Lulu or something? I mean, you can still only put the E on one, you can still only put the passive on one person at once. None of these are, like, I guess with Sona's Q, it's going to be really reaching and really goofy, I think, for a lot of builds. So that probably aren't going to be good. So I think the main thing is that it's going to be easier on these champs to get healing cut, which could be good in some situations. Okay. Hull Breaker is a little bit weaker. I think that's fine. This item is pretty goofy. However, I will say that split pushing does not seem to be a great strategy right now overall in the game. It feels like it should have been buffed because they made each individual dragon count for less. So it feels like strategies of just, like, opening up top and giving space for split pushers should be better. But for some reason, just a lot of the split push champs don't seem great right now. I'd have to think a lot more about why that is, but we're not seeing the Camille's, Fiora, Trendemir, Garen. Like, you're seeing some of these sometimes, but not that often. So I'm not sure if it's just kind of a team fight meta and everyone's getting forced into team fights, or maybe the split pushers just need more help from junglers top and junglers can't gank as much early on as they used to. Or maybe there's just a lot of mobility and people are getting run down now with the wind the Wind Dragon map where people can rotate a lot faster, or like the little warp map. It does feel like when they changed the map stuff that it made split pushing a lot worse because people can rotate faster on the Wind or on the warp gate map. I'm not really sure, but in general, I think this is an obnoxious item. But it does make split pushing worse, and split pushing already I feel is not great. Maybe I'm just not watching enough games, but it seems like that's not really a thing as much as it used to be. Okay, first strike, damage is down a little bit. I guess that helps. Versus assassins, maybe a little bit. I didn't think that item was too strong. It is goofy that it's a money item that encourages poke, so you generate more income, but it's also a burst item. So that feels a little odd to me. It feels like those should be different runes, but like the old one was fun. I mean, maybe it was broken, but I think they could have balanced it. It was really only Ezreal that used it. The thing that I don't remember what it is. Y'all will probably remember what it is, but where when you hit people, you got little like bags of money. Like you got 3 gold. It was like every 10 seconds you could trigger it, and you would get either a bag of money or you would get like items, and you could get like old items that could be kind of fun, different consumables. That kind of RNG, especially at a professional level, can be kind of goofy, so maybe they can't do that. But I thought it was fun. It was a fun item, and I feel like they could have had more in there to balance it out. Maybe take out the most obnoxious RNG stuff, like don't give people flasks or whatever. But, you know, let them get a mana pot. Let them get a little health pot, or an oracle, or something like that. Like a temporary oracle that's basically like an extra sweeper. I would love that as a support. I would think that'd be really cool. But the money bags were getting a little over the top, too. People were getting a lot of money with that thing. But anyway, some kind of income rune versus some kind of like burst rune. Do you really even need the burst rune? You've already got electrocute. Probably not, right? So I think this should be some kind of either something that helps with money, but historically that's been hard to balance. Okay, phase rush is a little bit weaker. This is probably fine. A lot of champs that use this, it feels pretty obnoxious, like Garen. But again, like those champs aren't really taking over a ton. I don't know. Maybe it is just too good on some champs. I really just don't have enough of a sense of how much this thing has been dominating off the top of my head. I know like Oriana likes it. Some champs that aren't really mobile, this does give them extra mobility. Maybe it's still like viable. This is really just for melee stuff. It doesn't even affect ranged. The nerf that they're giving here. So I guess that's okay. And now junglers are going to be healthier, so it's going to be harder to invade them, and they're going to be healthier for ganks. So this is good, especially for people that don't kite camps well. So it's better for newer jungles. And I think this is probably a good idea, because it's already difficult to get people to play jungle because you're going to get flamed the entire game. So in some sense, like, jungle has to be a little bit OP, or people just aren't going to play it because you have to do the most thinking. It's like really hard to make the correct decisions. So you already have to be like really smart to play it at a high level. You have to make difficult decisions. That's already difficult, especially for newer players or kind of like lower elo players. And again, the psychological torture you're putting yourself through as a jungle. Like, yes, you do have the mute features and things like that, but you're still going to be getting flamed a lot of the times. You just know you're getting flamed, that people don't like you. People are going to troll you. So there's already a lot of pressure, and it's just really stressful too, because like your team will, you know, bait you into going for this 50-50 smite fight, even if you don't think it's a good idea. They're like, come on, man, just do it. And then, you know, you miss the Baron off of a smite, or God forbid something like a Lux ult or whatever. Just feels so bad. So it's like the role is just really high pressure, high stress, very difficult to learn. So you got to throw them a bone a little bit. And I think making them a little bit healthier is nice, because this should not affect high-level play that much, because high-level players are probably going to kite the camps well anyways, or they're going to know the optimal routes. So this really, I think, is probably just going to help out lower level players more, which is where I think they need to help jungle out. Jungle is still really good at high levels. It's good at lower levels too, but again, it's the second least played role I think to support. There are some times where it's the least played role overall, I think. I still feel like support historically is the least played, but there's been a lot more like recognition of support and how good support can be and how you can actually carry with support. Since back in my day when I first started the channel, almost nobody thought support was respectable. Nobody thought you could carry with support. I guess, God, that was like 5 or 6 years ago. But now, a lot of people realize it. So I think support play rates have gone up a little bit to normalize and be really close to jungler in sort of the tied for least played. But I think a lot of the roles in general, they're all pretty popular. Last time I looked, I think it was like support was like 18%, jungle was like 19% of players, and then it was something like ADC and top were both like maybe 20 or 21, and then mid was like 22 or 23. So it was all within like 4 or 5 percentage points. So it's pretty balanced overall. But anyways, they want to make it friendlier for newer or lower level junglers. I think that's fine. Okay, and then the rest of this here, mythic shops, bug fixes, all that. Okay, that's it. All right, so thank y'all very much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate it. I'll see if I can get the support tier list either out later today or maybe tomorrow. And I am going to come back and try to stream more. It's just I've really struggled this semester with my schedule, just with keeping up with getting up early for school and trying to be healthier, trying to spend more time, playing with my daughters and helping out around the house, a little bit more, doing more laundry, doing more, lawn care and stuff like that. Because my wife is, her job is getting increasingly more busy. I call her executive. Because she's just in a lot of meetings, she's doing a lot of stuff, so I've had to pick up the slack and just do a lot more kind of just things around the house, things with kids, stuff like that. So anyways, I haven't given up on the channel. I'm still here. I'm still going to try to come out and see if I can stream at least 4 or 5 nights a week. I'm going to try to make it every night, but sometimes I'm just so tired and I'm just so like behind that I just have to fall asleep for a night. But I'm going to try to come out more often. Like I said, I'll try to do some more non-stream stuff too, especially once they start releasing these items in the preseason. I'm going to start doing like new champion guides and things like that, because I know some of those are like really old at this point. So I'm going to try to do some updated guides and just do some more tier lists and things like that. But anyways, that's it. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time.